Hi, everyone. Welcome to Keys to the Garden State, informative podcast giving some helpful information about the current real estate market in northern New Jersey. My name is Kevin Klemens. I'm an agent with Century 21 Gemini in Wayne. And the market's still strong, doing really well, assuming that you have a house to sell. The inventory is still quite low, but if you do have a home, you price it right, you're going to sell it, and you're going to sell it very quick. The market is still very strong. The idea is to get it ready properly. With that in mind, I'd like to welcome Sergio, who owns the Housemasters franchise. He's here to discuss current trends in inspections and the need possibly for a pre-inspection before a seller will list their home.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me on your podcast. Yes, I own Hudson, Passaic, and Morris counties for Housemaster home inspections. I've been doing this for about 27 years now. This is a very interesting and challenging market for us, too, on the home inspection side because there aren't that many homes selling as there were. But I see light at the end of the tunnel. I see a lot of more homes on the market today. Like we said, the inspection we did last week was pretty interesting. There was quite a few things that make the inspection a little harder. There are obstructions on the exterior, obstructions on the interior, but we got it done, and the client was happy with the report.
The advantage to having a pre-home inspection is that you avoid the kind of problems that we had last week. Most people are aware of major deficiencies in their home, but there could be things that they're not aware of, and it's a good idea to clear that out of the way. It doesn't mean you have to remedy a lot of these things, but at least going in. And you can even warn the potential buyers, here's an issue over here. We're not going to fix it, but here's an issue, instead of finding out after the fact.
A lot of times we get into a house and we can't do parts of the inspection because there's clutter or there's blockages. By allowing us to come in and do what we call a pre-listing inspection, it educates the seller as to what's going to happen during the home inspection so they can be aware of what's going to happen and they can make the house ready for us. Electrical panels have to be accessible. Attics have to be accessible. Basements and crawl spaces have to be accessible because the inspector's got to get in there. One of the worst things you can do is have an inspector that can't get to 2 or 3 places, and then he has to come back and inspect again. Because when the inspector's in the house, he's not only looking at the things that he missed that he couldn't get to the first time, but things may change. Something that wasn't leaking the first time may be leaking the second time. And if he sees it, he's going to put it into his report again. So now you've just given yourself 2 reasons for the inspector to come through and find things wrong with the house. So the pre-listing inspection allows you to tweak some things, make things, small repairs, minor repairs that you may think are cosmetic, where a home inspector doesn't have to write it into his report. It allows you to make the areas that the person has to go into more accessible. It makes a real quick, easy process, and it shortens the inspection period because there's no return trip and no delays and things like that. So pre-listing inspections are very important and very beneficial, I believe, to the real estate process.
Some years ago, I had a friend, another fellow realtor. He had a listing in River Edge, and he had me come over and look at the house, right? When I walked up to the front door, the storm door didn't close. First problem. I went inside the house. The house needed serious painting. There were holes in the walls, needed some work. So my friend says, what do you think of the house? I said, you got a great house over here. But guess what? You need a new storm door. The seller is not going to replace that. I said, it's going to be a problem. I said, by the way, you got holes in the walls. Well, they have kids. I said, we have kids too, but they usually don't put holes in the walls. I said, the point is, you want to get it cleaned up and painted.
Right.
He doesn't want to pay for it. Oh, well. Long story short, about 1.5 years later, he sold the house. And guess what they did? They replaced the storm door, they fixed the holes, and they painted the house, and it sold. It's not rocket science. When people come up to your house, and the first thing that they do when they open the door and there's a problem, they already are not feeling great before they walk in. So those little things are very important.
I see people's faces change, like halfway through the report, where we're through the inspection, where we're pointing out little things. They're all little things, but when you start to accumulate them, then it becomes a big thing. So if you can make the house cleaner and make it more efficient, I can't tell you how many times I walk in and there's a sink, whether it be a bathroom sink or a kitchen sink, literally leaking into the cabinet. Now, number one, you want to fix it to sell, but number two, you're living in the home. It's an active leak. Right. It takes 3 minutes to tighten an attachment. So just fix these small things. It makes the inspection go much smoother. Clients do get shell-shocked because the inspector's really there only to point out the defects and the problems. We're not going to go through and say, oh, these are great windows, first-class windows. That's not an inspector's job. But he is going to tell you that the doors are off the hinges or there's holes in the walls. The fewer of those minor defects that you allow the home inspector to find, the smoother the process is going to go, and the better the buyers are going to feel about their purchase, and everybody's going to be happy at the end of the deal. So pre-listing inspections, very, very important in my book.
Absolutely. You look at real estate listings, and how often does it say the house is being sold as is? Guess what, folks? Every house is sold as is. You don't have to say it, but here's the thing. If you got problems, the buyer is not going to say, oh, well, you said as is, so I'll just take it. It's not that simple, especially if it's something major. You know, a lot of times sellers believe it's such a hot market, it doesn't matter what I do to the house, it's going to sell right away. It might, but you're not going to get top dollar. You will get top dollar if you have the right presentation, the house looks great. I tell people all the time, you have an old house, that's fine. Hire a professional cleaning company, sanitize it. Your kitchen's very old, but guess what? If it's pristine and it shines, when people come in the house, they're going to say, well, it's an old kitchen, but boy, it's really clean. If you don't clean it, they're going to come in the house and say, this is an old dirty kitchen. Right away, your price drops. You know, little things like that. It doesn't cost you a lot of money, and you're going to get much better results, and you're going to avoid a lot of heartache, you know, because the home inspection can kill the deal. If the parties can't agree, you're not going to go any forward, you know, and it happens all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I see it too, because you see a dirty house and you think that, well, dirty means poor maintenance, neglect. So I can see the dirt, but now what is it that's behind the walls or behind the cabinets or things that I can't see? Based on what I do see, they think there's going to be more problems. So again, I'm not saying that you have to call in a sterilizing company to
No, but
make the house sterile, but you want to make it neat and tidy and as
sure.
clean as possible. Pets, don't leave pets in the house during a home inspection,
Right.
and clean up the pet area. You know, don't let the dog or the cat have food on the floor, or if there's sometimes there's pads where the animals go to the bathroom, replace the pads, put in clean pads.
Right.
It sounds like little tiny stuff, and people that have pets know and expect that, but it makes a big difference for the buyer that doesn't have a pet and doesn't understand why there's food on the floor or hair or fur all over the house. So cleanliness actually does help the inspection, even though it's not a home inspection item. It does help the mindset of the buyer and makes them feel better about their house. So, you know, it just sometimes it's common sense stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit of extra work, but it'll pay out for you in the future.
It really is common sense. I've seen photos and listings where the agent takes a picture of the laundry room and there's a litter box there. Why would you possibly want to show the public that there's a litter box in your house? If people don't like cats, they're not going to come. If they're allergic, that's even bigger problem. You want to get rid of, you know, possible issues, you know, people are gonna come in, and they come in and say there's cats in this house, they're gonna walk right out, you know. And these things happen all the time, you know. Don't take pictures of your laundry on the floor. You know, don't take pictures with closet doors open, showing everybody what you have in there. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Get rid of the clutter, clear the rooms, make them look bigger.
About 20 years ago, my wife and I were looking for a home at that time. My wife's not a big fan of birds, but you know, if they're in a cage and they're fine, she'll be fine with it. She walked into the house. We saw the bird in the cage, didn't really think anything of it. Apparently the door was open. We got about 6 steps into the house and this bird starts flying around. And of course it flies at her. She screamed, turned around, walked right out of the house.
Oh, yeah.
So again, you know, it's an innocent little bird. I get it. I like animals. They're cute, but some people are deathly afraid. She just turned around, walked out. We never looked at the rest of the house. They could have lost a potential deal there because the house was nice on the outside. Never got to see the inside because of the bird.
People got to feel comfortable when they come into your house.
Yep.
I've done open houses in the summertime where the owner refuses to put the air conditioning on because they're trying to save electric. I said, that's really nice. I like to save electric too, but see, the house is hot. What's the difference? The difference is that as soon as people walk in, they're going to want to walk out. You want people to want to stay. The longer they stay in your house, the better signal it is that they really like your house, you know. But if they walk out right away, you're done and they're not coming back. You need to make them comfortable. One way to make them comfortable is for you not to be here, which is another thing. Sometimes sellers want to hang around. Not a good idea. It's your home. It's very emotional. I've had buyers walk into homes making a lot of negative comments about things they don't like. If the seller's there, the seller's going to get upset. It's just not usually a good idea.
I've experienced that too. You're walking around with a buyer and they're making comments around the house, and then we realize there's cameras in the house. And nowadays, cameras in the house is not unusual. So it's something that you want to keep in mind. If you're walking through a home, doing a home inspection, and your buyers are there, hopefully your buyers aren't yakking away and insulting things, because everybody's taste is different. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's wrong. And you can change it once you move in, but you shouldn't be insulting other people's homes when you're walking through a home.
Usually not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
No. And, like I tell people, this is residential real estate. This is not combat. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that difficult. And it really is not. The process is not difficult. There's a lot of steps. And this is why you need qualified people with you. And if you're going to sell your home, just like if you're going to buy a home, the people that you're going to need to assist and get everything done, have them lined up in advance. I've worked with buyers that don't have an attorney. Who's your real estate attorney? I don't know yet. We're looking for a house. You need to know now. Why? Because when you fall in love with the house and you sign the contract, I've got to get that over to your attorney. How am I going to do that if we don't know who it is? You want to sell your house? Have the home inspector lined up. As a buyer, obviously, you should always have the home inspector lined up when you start looking so that you know you're going to call immediately and get it done. If you're buying up in Sussex, you might need a well inspector. You might need a septic inspector. A home inspector gives you a good general idea of what's going on, some specifics, but generally not expert in every field. So if the home inspector says, the roof's got some wear, what does that really mean? If there's issues, you might need a roof guy to come in there and take a look at it. It could get expensive. You're going to spend a lot of money on inspections, but it's still better than buying the wrong house.
Yeah, that's a very good point too, because the home inspection is not the only inspection that you're typically going to have, and home inspection is a process. You typically only get 10 days to deliver your home inspection findings or to do your home inspection. So when we get called on the 9th day to do an inspection, that's tough because we have to then turn around and deliver the report really quick. We have to be available. Sometimes we're busy. We only do 1 or 2, 3 inspections a day tops. So if you're calling us at the very end of your time allotment for your home inspection, and then we have to be available the next day, that doesn't always happen. The inspection process itself is time consuming because it takes us a day to do the inspection. Then it takes us another day to write the inspection. If we're doing things like radon or if we're doing mold tests or things that have to be sent out to laboratories, you've got lag time there. You've got 2 to 3 days depending on the test for the test to be run, and then they get the results back. So it stretches things out. Like you said, I think it's a great idea. As soon as you get out of attorney review, call the inspection company, say, hey, we're out of attorney review. We got 10 days. What's your schedule? And you can coordinate with them to get us in there, get it done, and get all the ancillary services done within that time frame. You don't want to hold up your closing. That's very important, in my opinion, too. And it takes pressure off of everybody, too, because then everybody's running around last minute trying to get things done, as opposed to being able to go in there and be nice and calm and think about what you're doing and think about what you're seeing.
The sooner you get the inspection done, the sooner everybody can rest. If it doesn't do well and you're going to get out of the deal, you're going to get out of the deal. But we don't want to do it at the last minute, just like appraisals, just like your mortgage commitment. I've had buyers that don't cooperate with the mortgage rep, and we don't have anything going on, and we're already late with where's your mortgage commitment? Oh, I don't know. It's not here yet. Well, yeah, but I know that. We're supposed to close. We're past our deadline. And then when I call the mortgage rep, what's going on? I'm still waiting for pay stubs. So now I got to call my buyer. What are you doing? Well, I was busy. We're all busy. You're buying a house. Yeah. You need to be proactive. In this market, you got to be very, very serious. You got to have your ducks in a row, as they say. Make sure you're qualified. You need to sit with a mortgage person early on and go over your numbers. And if it takes you a year to find a house, every 2 months you want to update that approval. Your situation can change. Your credit can change. Anything can change. Today, if you're off by 1 point on your credit score, it can affect the rate. So it's very, very important to get all that done, and make sure that you're qualified to buy the house. If you're not qualified, why are we here?
It's an extensive process. I mean, people don't realize because you don't do it that often, but there's a lot of different people involved, different time frames involved. So you got to be on top of everything ahead of time, which again, getting back to the pre-listing inspection, if you're buying a house that's already had a pre-listing inspection, even though you're going to call in your own inspector, you're not going to use their inspection. That house should be more ready and more set up for you to go, and it'll help your life and your process run a lot faster. So maybe you look for homes that have pre-listing inspections done already. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
Sure. And you could actually give that pre-listing inspection to the new inspector if you wanted to.
Yeah, it gives you a head start. It lets you know that they fixed things. Sometimes you may see stains, and you may say you would have told your buyers, "Hey, this is a possible leak," but now you can also show them the receipt from the contractor that the sellers used and say, "Hey, so just check with this, make sure this is legit." And if it is, then it's one less problem that the buyers have to worry about. So it's not uncommon for us to see the pre-listing inspection when we're doing a buyer's inspection. But again, they don't have to do that. Some people do, some people don't.
I have a question for you. If you do an inspection on a bank-owned property, now we know the bank's not going to do anything to remedy But is that also common that people would have an inspection on a foreclosure?
Yeah, you should have an inspection on any piece of property you buy. Before you mentioned people sell homes as is. Well, what does as is mean? As the buyer, you want to know what that means. You're not going to ask them to fix it. We understand they're not going to fix it, but you should then be able to know what the property is about so that you can get yourselves ready, your finances ready, your frame of mind ready, so that you know that you're going to have these issues when you move in and these things have to be repaired. So doing inspections on any property, I get the same question about new construction. We do a lot of new construction inspections too.
Yes.
I've had, we put a sewer scope into a property in Jersey City, brand new construction. The sewer pipe was crushed because they broke it when they poured the driveway. If we didn't do that, the buyer would have bought this home. Who knows, maybe 2, 3, 4 years later, they would have started to see seepage and damage to the driveway, not realizing that the pipe was broken. When they finally get around to checking out the pipe, they may have been past the 10-year builder's guarantee, and now it's your problem. So it's even new construction. You should have any property that you're buying inspected.
Yeah, it's true. I've heard that. People think, oh, it's brand new. There's nothing wrong with anything, or a rehab. You never know.
I want to tell you something else that comes up too, where the people that are selling you the house say, "Oh, we built it to code. It meets code, no problem." You realize that code is the least that you could physically do in order to get a permit to live in this house. So I'm an older guy, so I graduated with A's, B's, and C's. So think about meaning code as getting a D plus and graduating high school. You've now bought a house that meets D plus. Doesn't mean it's a great house. It just means it's the bare minimum that you can live in. So meeting code isn't the best. You want to exceed code. So things that you want to think about. Home inspection should be done on any property.
Earlier, we were touching on what sellers can do in preparation before they list their home and getting their home ready. What advice would you give potential sellers?
There's a few things they can do to make the house easier to sell or easier to inspect. Clear the home of any pets. Clear any obstructions to areas that the home inspector is going to have to get into. Things like the attic space, the crawl spaces, basement areas, furnace and boiler rooms. Sometimes electrical panels are blocked by furniture and mirrors and pictures and things like that. So you want to make sure that the inspector can get to all these components. Otherwise, he's going to have to come back and re-inspect again. Things like sinks and bathrooms are very cluttered sometimes. So if we can't get under a sink to see the valves, that's a concern where we're going to have to write up the report as not inspected. If you have gas fireplaces that have to be turned on, make sure your gas valves are turned on, because technically a home inspector is not supposed to turn that gas valve because he doesn't know why that gas valve has been turned off. Doesn't want to cause a leak. So make sure that all these things that are going to be looked at and checked are fully accessible for the inspector, so that the inspector doesn't have to make a second trip, sometimes at a charge, depending on the company, and or just slowing down the process.
And I would also add, in the event of an estate sale where there's nobody in the house, vacant, obviously, very often those homes are not decluttered because the party had passed away and the estate wants to get a quick sale. And that's also a problem too. If the home is vacant, it should really be vacant. Get everything out of there. Maybe some basic furniture as a little touch, to stage it. But definitely you don't want to have a lot of clutter, because it's going to make things worse for the potential buyer and for the inspector.
Yeah, that's very true. We do many inspections for vacant homes, and a lot of times the gas isn't turned on, or people have left the house and they're trying to save money, so the electric's been turned off. These things are problems because it causes another return trip to the inspection. It delays the inspection process and makes it more expensive sometimes for the buyers, and sometimes that cost gets passed on to the seller. So things that you want to do to make your house more inspectable is make everything that's going to be functional. Turn on gas, turn on electric, make everything accessible, and make sure that the home inspector can do everything that they need to do. Call us up, say, hey, what are you going to look at? And we'll tell you what we need to look at, and hopefully you'll make it better for us.
That's a good point, because I've shown vacant homes that have no power, and no one has told anybody that there's no electric. So you go there and it starts getting dark, and now we can't see. So now we're all walking around with cell phones, with flashlights, trying to look at the house. You cannot show a house this way. So I would say to, potential sellers, keep your power going, keep the water on, because when people come into your house, they might turn the faucet on just to make sure the water works. If it doesn't go on, it's a problem, little things like that.
Right. That's true. And especially that obviously affects the inspection, because if there's no power, especially, lights, fans, dishwashers, sometimes most ovens, nothing works. So I'm doing basically a dry inspection, and you're not really getting a lot of information. So it's usually definitely a return trip, or things get marked as not functional, and then there's a whole big conversation between what's working and what's not working.
Right.
So
Or the buyer just says, forget it.
forget
I
it.
don't want to go any further.
Right.
And you kill a potential deal.
Oh, and other things you want to think about too on the outside, abandoned cars, pods with furniture inside. If there's a pod on the driveway and the buyer wants to do an oil tank scan, it can't be done because it's blocking the driveway.
Right.
If there's an abandoned car in the driveway, if there's an excessive amount of debris, whether it be leaves or storage or things like that, the home inspector can't see the foundation walls from the exterior, then he marks it as not inspected, and the buyer says, well, why is it not inspected? Go back, and we can't go back because there's stuff in the way, and then people got to move it. It just complicates the issue. I think that you want to make your home sale as smooth and comfortable for both sides. So the easier it is for us to do our job, the easier it is for everybody else to do their job, and we get done quick and everybody's happy.
You're hiring experts, help them out. Let them get their job done,
Yeah, people forget about their garage. They take all their stuff out of their house and they shove it into the garage. So now I can't inspect the garage. So I understand you have to live in your home and there's certain things that you have to do, but maybe pull back from the walls. Leave a gap so that the inspector can sneak around between the storage and the walls so that he can at least see the walls.
I say to my buyers, we're not buying a pair of shoes. This is very serious. So you should take it seriously.
Well, it's a big investment.
And it's person has an average of 2 or 3 real estate transactions in their entire life. So it's a real big deal.
Realtors are the key to getting everything done. So you want to find the realtor that you're comfortable with, that you know has a good track record, that has a great reputation, and that answers the phone. That's not that common, believe it or not. So you need people like you.
I tell my sellers all the time, getting the deal is the easy part. I say, as a matter of fact, if you want to sell your house yourself and you don't want to pay a commission, I'll even help you. No charge. I said, because in this market, anybody can sell a house. That's easy. Get the right offer, write it up. It's getting it to closing is the work. And that's the process. And it's a long one. And then home inspector is critical, of course, and there's a number of other parties involved too. So I try to sit with buyers that don't know any better, and say, you think you know what's going on because you're on the internet, you're Googling everything, and it tells you what to do. You have no idea of the problems that you may have along the way, all right? So once we sign that contract, now the real work begins, and everything has to go in a particular order and get done on time, or you're not going to close. And everybody has to work together. Yeah. So we do that, we have a nice time,
It's definitely a team effort. You have to work with people that and that are available and accessible and willing to put in the time.
Absolutely.
And that's in every industry.
And I told all my clients, get a referral. You need somebody, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Who do they use? Who do they like? You can go on the internet, you could look for reviews. To me, that's irrelevant. It's still a one-on-one business. Find somebody you're comfortable doing business with. If you trust your attorney, which you certainly should, ask your attorney, who do you use? Who should I use? Whatever, and go forward, You get to know the home inspector like Sergio. He's going to recommend other people that you might need if you have other issues, because being a home inspector, he knows everybody in the business. So if you got a particular problem with the house, even after you close, you could call him and he'll say, listen, I know a great roof guy, call him, whatever, If not, you probably will get taken advantage of by the wrong parties.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but true. I give out my cell number all the time. I tell people all the time, feel free to call me. We hold our reports for at least 10 years, if not more. So if there's ever a question, you can always call back and we'll try to help you as much as we possibly can.
So Sergio, where can my clients go in order to find out about a pre-inspection?
The best thing to do is give my office a call, 973-299-1808. My office will help you book and schedule your inspection. If you want to speak to me directly, you can always use my cell. It's 201-401-1634. I can't book your inspection while I'm driving my truck to an inspection, but I can answer all your questions while I'm driving.
Thanks again, folks, for joining us. I'd like to thank my guest, Sergio Angione from Housemasters Home Inspections, who gave us some terrific tips for both buyers and sellers in order to get ready for what possibly may be the biggest financial transaction in their lives. Thanks again, and we hope to see you soon.